Welcome to MilSpouse Matters, the podcast dedicated to telling the stories of military families, one spouse at a time. Need some inspiration as you navigate military life? Moves, deployments, raising military kids, keeping your marriage together, career issues, and more? Get an encouraging, humorous outlook from a spouse who's been there for 30 years and more moves than she can count. Join host Jen McDonald, author of the book You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse who knows that we're stronger together. Grab your cup of coffee or a glass of wine and sit back and relax as Jen talks with military spouses, both new and experienced, who will give you real-life hope and support for your own MilSpouse journey.
Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of MilSpouse Matters. I'm Jen McDonald, and today I'm so excited to be talking to Tara Howes. Tara is a retired Army spouse, the mom of 4, and the co-host of My Military Life Radio. Over the years of her husband's Army career, she's been involved supporting military families in numerous capacities, including as a parent trainer for the Military Child Education Coalition, an Army Community Service Master Trainer, an Army Family Team Building Instructor, and as a volunteer for PWOC, the FRG, and more. Tara currently resides in Arizona with her husband Dino and 4 kids. Welcome, Tara.
Thanks for having me.
I am so glad to have you on the show. We have known each other for quite some time.
We have. I hate to think even how many years. That's ages.
So, over 20. Wait, not quite 20. We're not that old yet.
No, almost.
So we met when all of our kids were little teeny ones, and I think you only had 2 kids at the time. So how old are your kids now?
22, 21. They're about to have birthdays.
Yeah, you got to do the mental math.
Yeah, 17 and 15.
Okay.
3 girls and the youngest is a boy.
Cool. So he gets all the attention.
He's always in trouble. But I didn't have sisters, and so the whole dynamic of I only had brothers, so this whole sister dynamic, number 1 is annoying, and number 2 makes me thankful I never had sisters.
Really?
So when they're arguing and stuff and being just girls, I send messages to my mom, and I'm like, thank you for giving me a brother.
Because she did it on purpose, obviously.
Yeah, she hooked me up. It's just awesome.
And your husband retired, Dino retired a couple years ago.
Yep, 2 years ago, after 26 years in the Army.
Mm-hmm. So I always like to say we're Air Force, you guys are Army. And so every guest, just making sure when we use acronyms or talk about bases, don't assume anybody knows what you're talking about.
Exactly. It's very strange. And since his retirement, I've sort of ditched all the acronyms from my mind.
Have you forgotten them?
Amazing. Mm-hmm. It's great stuff.
So you didn't grow up military though?
My dad was actually in the reserves.
Okay.
So I've had an ID card since I was 10.
Wow.
But it was a pink ID card for us. That was what you got when you were in the reserves. And so and he also worked on post. So I did grow up around the military.
So you're very familiar with the life then. It
wasn't
so
and we lived in a town connected. So our friends were all Army. And he did deploy to Desert Storm when I was in high school. So I had like a glimpse into military life, but I didn't have any idea what I was getting myself into.
So you kind of had just a taste of like the hard stuff, deployments and, him leaving. You didn't get to have any of the fun part of moving or travel or any of that, really, did you?
No, I didn't. I didn't get anything fun for moving. Also, I don't know if I thought it was hard because, I was in high school, so I was self-absorbed. When your dad deploys when you're in high school, your mom's really stressed, and so you get away with murder. That's what I knew.
So you took advantage.
Yes. Yeah, I was such a joy.
I think the thing, kids are all react so differently to some. It really bothers them and just, it's such a hard time. And then others like you try to find the silver lining of what can they get out of it. Yeah.
Well, that was the first deployment anybody had ever been on.
Right.
Since
in modern day. Yeah.
Vietnam,
right.
Which he also went on before he was married, which is crazy. So there wasn't the whole worry. Nobody really knew. We didn't know what to expect. Nobody knew anything.
And
now
we
it's very different.
In the Gulf War. It was just like, woohoo, we're in there and we're done. That was different. That was very different. So you're younger than me. And I remember during the Gulf War getting because this is back when we used to get the newspaper, and getting the paper and having the first pictures of people going in.
Right.
And just kind of having that realization of, oh, wow. And this sounds crazy because, your spouse is in the military and they're in the military and what that means. But, everybody knows that was alive during that time, probably the 20 years leading up to that, there were no deployments.
No.
So you kind of didn't factor that into what your life was going to be. And I just remember that sinking feeling of, oh, this could happen, to our family.
Even I think I got married in 95. Mm-hmm. And even then nobody was worried about it.
No.
We just weren't. They were peacekeeping in Bosnia, and he did that, but it was never, I wasn't ever worried he was leaving to war.
Yeah. So you got married in 95, and I know that you've been overseas numerous times. So was your first move an overseas move? And talk about too how you and Dino got together.
We met at a club. So he was a great dancer and he was never drinking. That was a bonus point. So yeah, I knew him for about a year from that. And then I used to work at Walmart. So he'd come in and buy gum and talk to me. So that's how we started talking. I never dated anybody in the military before because I grew up next to a military base and that was just a no-no.
Isn't that funny? My grandmother was that way too. One of my grandmothers, because we did grow up near a military base, and she would always say stuff about, big finger quotes, those GIs. Right. It was never in a flattering manner.
No. And so, or the girls who did date them when we were growing up in high school, especially, was so,
because they're so young.
Do that.
Yeah.
But when I was in college, all of a sudden, he had his own job. He had his own car. He never asked his mother for money to take me on a date. And it was very refreshing.
What's this? Yeah.
Right. But I was very young. So my first move overseas was to Germany, my first move anywhere, and is actually my first time on an airplane.
Oh, wow.
So I flew overseas with my baby. She was 8 months old at the time.
Oh, my goodness.
And Dino. And so, wow, that was the craziest flight ever.
So were you excited or were you nervous or everything? Or because I know your approach to life is kind of like, well, whatever. So I don't know if you were like that back then.
I really wasn't. I was excited, I think, to leave. I think I'd been to a couple of states, but no exploring the other states. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I think I was excited, but I did cry for every day for 30 days when we were there.
Aww.
And he thought, he told me later, I thought I was going to have to send you home.
Yeah.
He was so worried. I was so homesick. I just wanted my mom. I was 20 years old. With this baby.
Yeah.
And we were in a hotel for 2 months then.
And isn't that whole, what have I done?
Yeah.
I went through that and my first move was not overseas, but I went through that homesickness and Steve finally saying, do you need a one-way ticket?
Yeah. He really did think he was going to send me back. He'd already been stationed in Germany.
Okay.
He had done his first duty station was in Germany.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so he came back, I met him, and we went back.
Wow. And then you were there and how long?
We were there for 3 years. And then, so the overseas thing, we moved back and forth, OCONUS, that's what they call overseas, if you're not aware. This is for all the civilian listeners. So we moved overseas and back every duty station.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it was fun.
Every move was an overseas move. So, because coming back from overseas, it's still an overseas move. You're still dealing with all the same things, shipping your vehicle.
Or you only take half your stuff.
Yeah.
So
back and forward.
Back and forth, yeah. And then the only time our very last duty station, when we tried to go back overseas, and then he gets the call that he's needed. He's needed at Fort Knox, and he was telling Olivia on the phone, yeah, I'm not that important. But they wanted him for a deployment, so not him personally, a person. So you know what I mean? They didn't need him.
Don't make it too special.
Yeah, I was like, nah. And Fort Knox is where everybody gets their orders out of that place, so they could just go in there and say, I need a person. So we were hoping to go back overseas for his very last hurrah, but instead we went to Fort Knox, which was sort of like a different country. So,
well, and we were talking earlier, your kids get used to They go overseas, they come back. And there are things to do with an overseas move that are not common to just a CONUS, within the States move, shipping your vehicle, sending forward part of your belongings, just all of it, the paperwork. And when we moved from Virginia to Texas for our final move, my daughter, her question was, so when do we ship our car? And I just started laughing at her. I was like, we're driving it. And she goes, what? And I said, and it just dawned on me, like every move for the last 6 moves or so, and probably as far back as she could remember, were overseas moves. Yeah. And they just get used to it. Like this is the rigmarole. They're going to crate up all our belongings. You have to get your vehicle inspected and ship it, and et cetera.
Mine thought the same thing. They said, when are they shipping our car to Kentucky? And I was like, oh, we have to drive it. And I swear one of my kids was like, Mom, we're in Texas. And Kentucky
can't expect it.
Yeah, Kentucky is far. And I was like, no joke.
Yeah.
And so then on the way back, because then we moved from Kentucky to Arizona when we retired. And so we drove 3 cars because my daughter had a car then. So
this whole road trip PCS thing was very foreign to them.
Yeah, it was fun though. I just really liked it. We stopped and saw like all our friends, on the way.
You can fit so much extra stuff in your cars because when you move overseas, you have to make sure it all fits into your luggage. Yeah. You don't have to. You can like throw a couple extra pots and pans in the car or whatever.
What are you talking about? I had like all my photos. I was like,
all your extra
because our stuff was going into storage and we didn't know how long we were going to keep it in storage.
Yeah. So sentimental things.
It ended up being in there for a year.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, if I don't want something missing, it's going in our cars.
Or damaged from weather or whatnot. Mm-hmm. Well, so tell us your overseas assignments. Where all have you been?
So I've been in Germany. We've been in Seoul, South Korea, and we were in Okinawa, Japan.
And which one was your favorite, or did you love them all?
I loved everywhere we've been, but Okinawa was probably just my most favorite. It was just a perfect storm, kind of like the best friends, the best ages of my kids at that time. Yeah. I just had a blast there. Even though it was like my most busy season of my life, it was just so fun.
How long were you guys there?
For 3 years.
Okay. And isn't it interesting when you're overseas? It does have such a different feel. And if you try to come back to the States and recreate that same feel, it's just, unless it's a very remote base, because we have had that at some bases that are really far removed from a town. It's kind of similar where kind of everybody lives on base and has that similar feel to an overseas base. But what do you think it is?
I think we just need each other, which is so funny that you say that because I've forgotten this. But when we lived in Germany, my first experience with the military, we moved to MacDill Air Force Base for like a special assignment because he's Army. That's where we met, you and I.
Yes.
But and no, I didn't think people were friendly in Florida. I thought it was Florida. Oh. Instead of not being overseas. I didn't realize it was the overseas thing that made everybody kind of stick together. True. But then, so when you move back to the States, it's just not the same. Your neighbors aren't walking in like, hey, what do you need? Are you good? Like, yeah, let me shovel well, you don't have snow in Florida, but you know what I mean?
Right,
so
right. Well, I
thought everyone was being there.
If you're overseas, you can't drive over to see your parents for the weekend. You don't have to connect in the States. True. And so that was something that was hard for me to get used to, is people would be going back home all the time, or they might be stationed close to family, and they didn't, like you said, they didn't need each other the way you do. Where you really do come to rely on each other. It's such a unique experience. And so if there's anybody listening that's coming up to an overseas move and is dreading it, don't. Just,
it's so fun.
It's such a different experience. It's such a good experience.
I remember before Okinawa, we were in Louisiana, and he calls branch, that's what we call it, to see what assignments are coming open when we're getting ready to move. And so I'm praying. I'm sitting in the chair like across from him and praying like, come on, Jesus, Arizona. I just want to go home. Arizona. And then he's writing down what she's telling him, and he writes down Japan.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, never mind, Jesus, never mind. Japan. And I was like, take it. It's just funny. Like, I really wanted to go home. For some reason, I just was missing home. And then when he wrote down Japan, I was like, I'm going on an adventure.
Yeah.
So I was like, take it. And so we took Japan.
Did you travel a lot while you were there? Did you go other places?
We didn't. We stayed on the island. I traveled a little bit for work, which was not work, it was volunteering. They sent me to Hawaii, which was awesome.
Uh-huh.
But I didn't, because when you went to Japan, you can't take your cars. So we ended up selling our vehicles. And so I knew that we had to buy cars when we got back. And so we were just saving money.
Oh, okay.
And so my friends were traveling to Bali and going to Thailand. And I was like, I need a new minivan when I get back. And I want to pay cash for it.
Well, and the COLA, the cost of living allowance, that is, especially if you have several overseas assignments right in a row, you get so used to that, and you come back to the States and that goes away, and you go, wow, we don't make very much compared to...
We are poor now. Yeah, it's true. So we didn't do a lot of traveling. I sort of wish I had, but I don't know. Some of my kids don't even really remember Okinawa. My youngest one doesn't really remember. So I thought, nah, why would I take him to Thailand? He wouldn't remember.
Do you know, when we lived in Germany, our older two were in high school. The third one was in middle school, and our youngest was in elementary school. And we did a lot of traveling because Steve was also deployed out of there. So one thing I did was a lot of USO trips. Yeah. Which they'll just set it up for you. You can just book it, get on their tour bus, or we even went to Rome and booked it all through them. But I realized my older kids would be driving along, and I'd go, oh my gosh, look. And they'd go, oh, look, another castle. Oh, it's an old cathedral. Funny? And I'd be like, one day you're going to realize what you're looking at. And then my youngest was super, super into it and would check out books from the library. And I'm trying to think of the work of art. We were driving along, and I can see them in the rearview mirror, and she's sitting between her older brothers, and she goes, are you guys not even excited about going to Rome, and you're going to see like La Pieta and all this stuff? And I'll never forget their expressions as they looked at her, like, what are you talking about? Like, you're such a nerd. And she was all in. It was so fun to see her just really.
Well, Europe is so amazing for that. We traveled a lot in Europe. I mean, I had a friend there. She was like one of my first friends. We had, similar age kids. So we made friends, and they're still friends to this day. They call themselves fetus friends. They were like 8 months old when we met. We met the first month we were there, and we're still friends now. But she was a planner, and so she would say, hey, you guys want to go to the Netherlands? And I was like, okay. And she would plan the trip. She was amazing.
That makes it so nice.
Oh, she was fantastic. So we did a lot of traveling, but we were the young, stupid people that we went to Italy once. We were like, let's just go. I didn't know where we were going. There was no internet back then. You had to get books. So we got there, we were in Vicenza. And so then I was like, oh, we're next to Venice. Let's go to Venice. But, I didn't know like Florence was right there. And all these different things were right there.
Oh, and you could have gone.
That we could have just driven to.
This is back when you used to walk into like MWR or whatever, get their little pamphlets of nearby travels. Well, and I think, it is very different now. People have so much information accessible. And even when we lived in Germany, we did book everything online. But aside from that, I think there are a lot of things that are the same. So for somebody that's just moving overseas, what are your quick tips maybe of what to pack, not to pack, what to get rid of, or anything else, you can think of?
Okay, so going to Korea, you can only take half your stuff, right? And so I didn't take any of our furniture, anything. I just took basic things. I didn't know. And then you get their like renter furniture sort of looking thing, the loaner furniture. And that really made me sad because it wasn't my house. I didn't feel like it was a home. And I remember my friend Emily lived upstairs, and her house was so homey. It was like her own couch, and you know what I mean? She just brought stuff. So when we went to Okinawa, I was like, oh, I'm taking my mattress, like my bed, and my couches, because I just wanted my house to feel like my house. I didn't care about the decor necessarily, because, don't get crazy. When you're overseas, ladies and gentlemen, you get to go shopping. So
leave some room to bring things back.
Yeah. So I did bring, I would say always, if you have a comfortable mattress that you love, take it.
Yes.
Because you're going to hate life when you have a loaner.
Well, and really, I don't know how it was in Korea. For us, like the loaner furniture was just temporary until your things arrived. I guess it just depends on the assignment.
No, over there, where we were in Korea, you kept it the whole time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So did you put your things in storage, or what did you? Or did you get rid of them?
No, I don't get rid of anything. I put in storage unless I'm close to my weight limit. And then if you're close to your weight limit and you're worried because you're a little bit of a hoarder, you need to sell because you do not want to pay the fees that may come if you're overweight.
And even if you go somewhere that you're allowed to bring your own things, there's something to be said for storing things that you won't need. So like, okay, your wedding dress or leave them with your family if you can, or do long-term storage, because toting that kind of thing back and forth,
Right.
You run the risk of damage, or just even like you said, taking up space when you want to bring back
and
things
overseas,
from shopping. Yeah.
It depends on where you are, but if you're going to like Asian countries, the houses are not as big as they are other places, so you just don't want to have that much
and
junk.
That's common in lots of parts of Europe as well. It's not the same. You don't have the big closets. You're not going to have most likely a garage with storage space and things like that.
I would recommend, if you have children or yourself and you're holding on to those clothes that you might someday get into, just get rid of them. Or if your kids are close to like getting like out of summer, if you're in Florida and you have a ton of summer clothes, you're moving to Europe, you can probably get rid of half of that stuff. You're not going to need it.
Or put it in storage.
So we went store kids' clothes, because then they won't be able to wear. I've done that before. I'm the idiot who stored kids' clothes, and then you come back and you're like, no one fits these clothes.
Well, and the other thing is too, like for you, if it's just for you and your spouse, so say like Hawaii, you don't need to bring all your winter clothes. Like but also don't leave them all, because you'll probably travel. So when you go to travel back to the States in the winter, oh yeah, where's my jacket? You don't want to have to buy new ones, but it's just, think about it, like what you think you'll be doing, how much you'll be traveling. And like you said, I think kids' clothes for sure, get rid of. I would always keep things to hand
I would
on
just
to the next
definitely
one.
get on those Facebook pages for where you're going, and then ask the questions, and they'll tell you. If you're going to Hawaii, things are going to mold.
Yeah.
If you're in Okinawa, things are going to mold. If you're with 100% humidity on an island, you better not take things that you are worried about getting destroyed from moisture.
And there was one move. My parents have had my wedding dress. I think it's starting to become
That's funny.
A point of contention. Not really, because the last time I went, they said, "Oh, we have your wedding dress for you to take home." And I had brought my Honda Accord. I was like, I don't know where you think I'm going to fit that, because I have all my luggage. So they still have it, but they had wanted me to take it, and we were about to move overseas. And I said, I really don't want to run the risk of keeping this. And can you keep it in your closet? That was actually when we lived in Florida too, because we went from Florida to Guam. And I don't know if you remember this. I had a bunch of things out in those storage sheds, and it flooded. And I did have some items for my wedding that were ruined. And, I wish I would have left all of it with my parents but you live and learn. But if there are things like that are super precious, try to find somebody to maybe hold on to them for you for, a couple of decades.
Yeah, true. If your parents have like an attic, that'd be a great spot for it.
Yes, rather than toting all that stuff around.
And right now I've been on these PCS Facebook pages. And it is horrifying what's happening. Oh
no!
With the movers.
Yes.
I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Well, do you think it's any different, or do you think because now we have social media and people can post what actually happened? Because don't you remember when we were younger, people would tell stories and you'd go, "That couldn't have happened. That can't be true. Like, it sounds so exaggerated." But then when you see a photo of it, you go, "Oh my goodness, wow." Well, what's your worst move experience?
Oh, I don't know. It's never been that bad for us. I try to glass half full, I guess.
Yeah.
I think our last one was probably the worst, and it still wasn't as bad as some people get.
Yeah.
But it was just our stuff was in storage for a year, and you'd think when they store it, they put it all together and say, "This is Tara's stuff." But they don't. It's all over the place. I don't understand. So our driver was in charge of getting everything, and we found out once he got here, his vision is bad. He was not reading the numbers correctly because he couldn't see them. And so he said, "I had a real hard time finding all your stuff." And now we know it's because he can't see very well. Right. So things didn't show up. We just didn't get stuff.
Oh, no.
But it was never, I don't know what else. I'm sure there is something that's important, but at this point, I don't know what it is. Our vacuum didn't come. So that's fun. And then some kitchen stuff, a whole box of.
You just never saw it.
Kitchen stuff. No, and I don't even know what was in there, but I do know, how you keep all your plastic stupid things?
Yeah.
I had Disney plates. Don't ask me why when my kids are that old, but they liked them. It's they reminded them when they were little.
Yeah.
And our little Tupperware kids cups with the straws. And everything plastic never came.
Well,
so I know. And actually my cabinets are, my glass cabinets are very nice. Because there's only 3 plastic cups from a barbecue place here.
They'll slowly build back up your collection, I'm sure. Do you know, one thing I would say is to watch your movers. I don't like to be that person. I have known people that sit and write like little instructions super specific. But when and this was our first overseas move, so I just didn't know. But I remember watching them unload our things in Guam, and you haven't had them for a couple months, and you're so excited to get it, and they start getting stuff off the truck, and things are falling out that are broken. So we actually had somebody we had a big old cabinet full of puzzles and kids' toys. And I don't know how neither my husband or I saw this. They didn't wrap anything individually. This is what they did. They took this big giant shelf and they wrapped brown paper around it. And so then as they're getting it off the truck in Guam, you just see pieces start falling out, all these pieces of toys. So you think that stuff's been rattling across the ocean. And so the movers on the other end, they're apologizing. They're not the ones that did it, but they're going, we're so sorry. They didn't wrap this correctly. And then I had another one where they put like giant weights in the bottom of this china cabinet I had bought in Germany, because that's a great idea. And that was an overseas move, and that broke out a door. And so that one I did cry when they got that off the truck, and I saw it, and the movers that are receiving are just astonished, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did this. We're so sorry. Right. Well, I'm going to go back to something you mentioned earlier about being a volunteer. And you often say that you're like a professional volunteer. And
I'm an unemployed professional volunteer.
And one of the biggest messages to not just military spouses, but young moms, but especially when you think about military spouses that are moving a lot or dealing with a deployment, it's just such a different life. But feeling like you have to have that side hustle or that mompreneur mindset. And that's great for some people, but for others, it just can create a lot of pressure. And honestly, I'm very, very thankful there wasn't social media when my kids were young, because I would have felt like such a failure. How have you given yourself permission to kind of let go of that mindset?
I feel so sad for the young women in the military spouses right now, or men, I guess. Mm-hmm. We just didn't have that. I feel like we did not have that kind of pressure to have a side hustle. Mm-hmm. That we need to be building our portable. Yeah, we need to be building our portable career,
which is great for some people. And I
have friends
away from that. It definitely works for some people.
I have friends who, because they work, they're more present at home.
Yeah.
They have to, or they'll lose their minds. Mm-hmm. And that's awesome. But for a lot of people, I think they just get caught up in these MLMs, or they feel like they just have to have something of their own.
Something. Yeah.
Right. I don't know why I never got caught up in that. Now, I always fake sell everything I want a discount on. Do you know what I mean? I've fake sold a lot of things, but I never actually
and Pampered Chef and everything on there because you sell all of them.
Nothing like those two. No, not those two, though. I thought about it with Scentsy because I did love them. But I won't even say what they are. But I never sold anything because I didn't actually want to sell it. I just wanted the kit.
You wanted the discount.
Yeah, my husband's like, for real, every time. Really, I'm not having a party.
But you've done a lot of things. You have done a lot of things, and I know you don't give yourself enough credit.
Well, there's so much pressure for these girls, and then you always have to. All the businesses you got to keep God first, then your husband and your kids, and if you have time, you have friends, and then you have your kids' school stuff, and don't forget your unit.
Yeah.
And so it's just so, and you have to be good at everything, and then also please roll up in your cute outfits with your makeup done. I just can't do that, whoa, that's a lot.
So early on you realized.
Man, I could never do it. And kudos to those who can. Wow, you are the bomb.com. We need to be friends, and you need to come over and help me fold my laundry. Yeah, I could barely keep up with all my children and all the things that I volunteered to do, which is a ridiculous thing too.
And that's good, because then you're giving permission to someone that maybe feels like they're not doing, quote, enough.
Girl, just relax.
And taking care of your family, and especially if your spouse is deployed a lot or has gone a lot. And I've been there where we had about 15 years where and it's not an exaggeration, Steve was gone more than he was home.
Right.
And
he was always gone.
He was always gone. And it just got to the point where I didn't even factor him into any kind of help, any kind of anything with the kids. When he was there, we were glad he was there, but I couldn't plan for him to actually be there. So if you're in that position, give yourself permission to concentrate on your family. The career stuff can come later, or you can maybe dabble in it right now or do what you can, but don't take on that guilt that you're not doing enough when you compare yourself to other people's Instagrams or whatever.
And don't compare yourself to civilians.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because it's just a whole nother, they're like husband's business trips. I did air quotes on that one.
We're going to be nice about this.
But no, I'm saying like, it's just very different if they're gone for, a short amount of time, as opposed to them being gone for long term with the idea that he might not come back.
Yeah.
It's a very different stress. It's just a very different mindset and a different stress than him being at like a work thing.
Right.
So don't stress too much. I think my husband never put pressure on me to like bring home the bacon.
Yeah.
So, and it also helped that every 3 years I was leaving the country.
So because you're like, well,
I could have had any kind of business I wanted and I'd been like, all right, I'm out. Like there goes everything you've worked for. So it's very hard. And I would just, I don't know. I just feel so bad for the young women coming up right now, especially with social media, because they're like, oh no, you can network on social media. And I have friends who do an amazing job at that, but I don't have time for that nonsense.
Yeah, it would not have worked for your personality. So talking about being a volunteer and like a professional, big quotes, volunteer, what was your biggest challenge in military life and how did you solve that?
So I think my biggest challenge was doing too much. I think I volunteered too much. In Okinawa, I'll give you a list, I guess. I made a list for myself. I was the FRG leader. I was on a steering committee for our battalion. I was a Girl Scout leader. I was doing training to become a Girl Scout leader trainer. I was the ACS master trainer. I still did Army family team building classes. If it was the right time of the year.
Wow.
I was the Army Family Action Plan Conference, which is amazing. Get involved if you want to. I volunteered with the Special Olympics that they had every year. I was helping in my daughter's class. I was my son's room mom. What in the world? Plus, I went to PWOC, which is a Bible study. And then I had a trainer at the gym because above all things, I was trying to get buff.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, in your spare time.
And I worked for a website called Okinawa High. We didn't get paid, but I worked for them. Plus, that my kids had dance and sports. And I was doing the same thing to them because I remember the girls leaving ballet and it was right outside of the soccer fields. And they would throw on soccer shorts and cleats and run out to practice after ballet. Like, why was I doing that to them?
Well, and I was going to say, why do you think that was? Do you think that you felt a responsibility to say yes to everything because you didn't have, quote, a real job? Or did you just enjoy it?
I enjoyed some of it. Some of it I felt a responsibility to do, probably like FRG stuff. Yeah. I felt like I needed to do that. But our unit was so amazing that it made it fun, actually. So that was a bonus. Well, that's good. I did FRG. I was the FRG leader for 3 years that I was there.
Yeah. Like, and what the heck? For people that aren't Army, that's Family Readiness Group, because we call it different things in the different services. So basically really? Almost like a key spouse kind of thing for the Air Force. And I don't know.
You guys call it something different.
Yeah.
So I don't know why I did that, but it was exhausting. Something had to give, you know what I mean? Like you can't be good at everything you do.
No, you can't. And I found, so this is my theory because we did homeschool for years and years, and I really didn't start working again until my kids were much older. So I felt like I had this saying, like I could do a couple things well. It would either be housework, kids, marriage, and then the extra stuff, but I couldn't do all of them. So there'd be always 2 of them would be running really well. The other one's kind of eh. So like if I was super involved with outside stuff, my house suffered, and I don't know, that's just me.
So here's what's funny about that. That's very true. There's always going to be something that has to give. In Okinawa, you like kind of like bequeath your, is that what it's called? Your maid to someone. Because you don't want her to not have a job when you move. And so I had a friend.
So common that culture.
Right. So I had a friend move away and she's like, please, let her come work for you. I want her to make sure she has a nice family.
I never got an assignment like that. I never got to have that.
So I had a maid during all of that time.
But that's good.
So that it was very nice. Very nice.
You know, I had a mentor.
I sound so bougie. I love it.
Because I never lived in Asia, but I know I've had friends that say the same thing. It's just a different mindset. It's kind of expected.
Right.
So, but I think with the whole saying no thing, I had a friend tell me, that's one of my mentors, just say, you know, I felt guilty about saying no. And she said, if you say no, then you give other people the opportunity to step up. And if you think of it that way, if you say yes, you're keeping somebody that might be hesitant from jumping up and maybe growing and filling that need. So don't feel guilty about saying no. You know, that was the message.
And how did I solve that problem? As I never volunteered again. No, I became very picky about where I spent my time.
Right. So you know, another thing is too is don't say yes right away. Always give yourself time to think about it, because I hate it. I'll jump in. Yes. And then a couple days later, I hate having to go back and tell them, you know, I thought about it and it's actually a no. It's better to just be upfront and say no. And
that is probably the best advice I should have gotten when I was younger, is go home, talk to your husband about it if he's in town, in the country, because, you know, he may remember that you've committed to do something else, that you're so excited about this event or this thing. You're like, I just want to help them. It'll be so amazing. And he's like, hey, don't you remember that you have to bake cookies every day for 4 weeks in a kindergarten class? I don't know what it could be.
Yeah, right.
But, you know, he may remember something that you have to do, or go home and look at your calendar and realize, oh, that's not going to work.
Right. It's good when you have somebody that can be that sounding board and the sanity check. It's good when it's that way.
I had a friend tell me stop having a helium hand. She was in Okinawa. She was like, you need to stop. And I was like, what are you going up every time they ask for a volunteer? Every time somebody asks for a volunteer, it's like slides up.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
But then again, she was volunteering at 3 of the things I was doing. So
she had no room to talk.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh.
Thinking about yourself as a young military spouse, and now looking back, you know, retired a couple of years, what would you tell your younger self?
I think that I would say use sunscreen.
That's not where I thought this was going.
Every day. And then
that's important.
Sun damage is real, ladies. Sun damage catches up to you. Also,
that's too funny.
Not military related, but I'm just letting you know. Yeah. Also, lay off the carbs. But okay, that I think the one thing I would say is that you can be friendly with people, but not friends with everyone.
Yeah,
I think that would be a huge one, because I was thinking I had to be best friends with everybody I met
to be a nice person.
Yeah, like, we just met and we need to hang out and we need to go do that. And I need to make sure that everybody knows I'm nice and that I like them and I'm going to invest in them. And I just, no. You can be friendly, super friendly with everybody, and not friends with everybody.
So living overseas can be a lot like Mayberry, where kind of everybody knows everybody else's business. So that's good advice, because you don't have to be best friends with everybody. Everybody doesn't need to be privy to all of your information. You know, be smart about that too.
Yes. And then I think this military life you're in, it feels like it goes on forever, but it's shorter than you think. It's like raising kids. So take the overseas assignments, man. Take those overseas assignments.
It'll be over before you know it.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's fun. Yeah. My husband told me, I always told you I'd show you the world. I was like, boy.
It's so true, though. Well, what's been the biggest surprise for you since leaving the military life?
How much I don't miss it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that too. Yeah.
At first, I missed it. At first, I missed the idea that I wasn't going to have built-in people when we moved here.
Yeah, it's on you now.
But man, it's kind of freeing not to have any expectations of you.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what I do.
Isn't that fun? So,
I love it.
I think I told you this. I took a photo of myself with a baseball cap on and sent it to my sister. I'm like, I went to the store like this. She goes,
yes.
And? like a regular person. I was like, I don't know.
But people have been doing that their whole lives. We just didn't realize it because we didn't want people to talk smack about us for looking like garbage.
It's so
Isn't that
true,
weird? And maybe we put that on ourselves.
Probably.
You know, I don't think so. Because you know how when you go in and you've done your hair, and I don't walk around like I'm at the prom, people. That's just not me. But I did make sure I had mascara on, for God's sakes. So now I just don't even care.
And like a cute haircut.
Amazing. And I was having a problem at the hospital with some insurance stuff with my kid. And I was on my period. So granted, I was a little whack that week. But I am blaming my behavior on things that are within my control, but whatever. So I really was like, I'm going to kill somebody at the hospital. I'm going to go off, right? And then I thought, no, you can't go off because that will reflect badly on your husband and his unit. And I thought, no, it won't.
Because he's not active duty anymore.
I was like, oh my gosh. And I was very kind because that's just who I am anyway. I was just having a blip. But I really thought, oh my gosh, I could go off on someone and there's no ramifications.
Other than them going, there's that crazy lady.
Besides them going, we'll never help you again. Yeah, we'll never help you again.
You know, and we can touch on that real quick because you have had a significant occurrence since your husband retired with your daughter's accident last year.
I did. She fell 25 feet and has a spinal cord injury, an L1 spinal cord injury. So she is paralyzed but learning how to walk. They said she would never walk again, but you know, God had other plans for that.
Yeah.
So her neurosurgeon doesn't know what to do with her. Really, it's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
He was just like, he's the one that said she's never going to walk again. And we were like, okay. And then we're in his office, and this was a year ago still because it was 6 weeks later. And so we're in his office, and she transfers because she needs to scooch out of her wheelchair onto the examining table because she thought he was going to examine her. And she was swinging her legs because she'd gotten a lot of quads back even earlier in early days. And he just walked in and was like, looked at her swinging her legs and said, I don't know what to say.
What are you doing?
And so then I was like, we made this appointment, you know, we waited in the waiting room for you to tell us some amazing somethings.
Yeah.
And then he just pretty much said, the only advice he gave us was don't get in the hot tub until your wound had healed on her back from her surgery. And I was like, really? That's
your big
you've got for us?
Well,
you're a neurosurgeon. That's all you've got for us.
Well, and the thing of it is, too, that, you know, you look at, like you said, God working in this, that you were living in your family when this happened. So could you imagine having gone through that far away? I mean, do you think you would have dealt with it differently?
Actually, I was sort of sad that it happened here and not at our other duty stations because I had my support. Right. So I had my parents, and I had some extended family, but I didn't have friends here.
Yeah.
So if I had been anywhere else, I would have had people just rolling in. I know it because that's who they were, you know.
Right. And boy, the military community will rally around. They know how to do emergencies.
They do, you know what I mean? So It was very different. So it was like I had my family, but I was still very alone because my friends were all in other states.
Wow. I didn't think about that.
I sort of missed. I was like, dang, too bad you didn't fall in Kentucky where I had a crew of people. Yeah.
They'd have been doing your laundry and bringing meals every night and taking your kids to school. And
Now, I did have my best friend from high school, which is so funny. She brought food to my family and kept them fed because we were an hour and a half away. Mm-hmm. So there's constantly food in my freezer for them.
Oh, that's great.
So she definitely stepped up. But so she stepped up in a big way. But I mean, I know I would have had 40 of those people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anywhere else I'd been.
Wow.
I know. It's weird.
Well, I'm so glad she's doing so much better.
Oh, she's doing awesome. Yeah, she's doing great. She's still annoying. I always like to make sure everybody knows.
It doesn't change your personality.
Right. Everybody's like, oh, she's such an inspiration. I was like, yes. And she still doesn't like to put away her laundry. Great.
There's that.
She's an inspiration.
Well, before we get to wrapping up, I want to ask you one last question before we get to our surprise questions. What is your best milspouse memory? If you had to pick one, or maybe two.
Okay. I that's so funny. So I kept thinking I could never come up with just one memory. My first milspouse thing that happened to me, we were in Germany in the hotel for 2 months. And after my 30 days of crying, I think I'd sucked it up. I'd gotten my license there and we had bought a car. And so my husband didn't have his license yet. So I was driving him to work and then I'd have the car. So this girl who was also in the hotel with us, another young spouse, we decided to go exploring.
Uh-huh.
This is before GPS, we may have had a map, but I don't think we did.
Oh no.
So we'd heard of these towns outside of base. So we left post. We were like on our adventure. And so we followed the signs to this,
which is a challenge in itself in Germany.
Yeah, they're not in English. So we followed these signs to like kind of a larger town and just followed these little arrows until we found this place. We saw this bridge and we pulled in. And we actually thought we had discovered this amazing area. Like it was like the Stadtmitte or whatever, with the cobblestone and the old buildings. And we thought we found that. I mean, we were so impressed with ourselves.
Oh my goodness.
We were taking pictures and we were like, look what we found. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
And for people that don't know, what does that mean?
It's like sort of like the downtown area,
okay.
Right? The old part of town, I think. And it's like everything's cobblestone and it's like there's churches and there's shops and it's just the most fun place. But we really thought we had found
yes, that's what we stumbled upon.
Isn't that funny? We were so impressed with ourselves and taking pictures and went back and told our husbands like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. And we got back in one piece and made it home safely. I don't know how we did that. Yeah, it's pretty. I don't know how we did that, but yeah, it was amazing.
They're like, yeah, we know. Everybody goes there.
Yeah, we come back. We're like, we found this place, and they're like, yep, that's where we all go. I was like, oh,
and it had this sign that said "Ausfahrt."
Yeah,
and if you take it,
yeah, exactly.
Exit.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. But yeah, we really thought we had discovered a gym.
That's hilarious.
In Germany.
Oh, but how fun,
so that was my first foray into exploring.
Well, and that's brave because we lived in Germany with GPS, and I would always say, I don't know how people lived here before it because I can't read these signs. By the time I finally try to get through it, I'm past it, and I don't know if I should have turned or not, So
yeah. We got lost a lot, but it was a lot of fun. And we would go to the Czech Republic.
Yeah.
Once a week, my friends and I would go. And I was like, what were we thinking? We had no map. Or maybe we had a paper map. I don't know what we had. Oh, my Lord.
Oh, that's fun, though. All right. So now I'm ending every episode with a quick 5. So 5 questions that you don't know, you didn't know ahead of time. So you just have to give me your answer on the fly, and it will help us just get to know you a little better. So here's the first one. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Chicken and dumplings.
That was very fast. So what is your guilty pleasure?
I like keeping up with the Kardashians.
Do you really?
They're really good entrepreneurs.
Oh, don't try to spin it like in some I'm learning a life lesson here. Okay.
They're hustlers, those girls. They work
hard. Side hustle. So, okay.
They work hard.
That's funny. So, what is your least favorite sound?
People chewing.
Oh my goodness. I should have known because we were talking about that earlier.
I hate it.
What is your funniest talent?
Oh my gosh.
That's a hard one, huh?
My funniest talent? I pick a lot of things up with my toes.
That's a good one. Did you learn that pregnant or before you were pregnant?
Probably. I think I probably did.
Because I think, don't we all? Yeah. I do that now too, and I'll do my monkey toes thing, and my husband will why don't you just lean over and pick it up? I don't know, just.
Mine says the same thing. It must be pregnant. We learned that when we were pregnant because my husband's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "He goes, just pick it up." And I was like, "I did."
This is easier. I don't have to bend over because I'm getting old now. Okay, the last one is a little more serious, and you can't use the answer Jesus. That's always the answer. Can't be the answer. If you could talk to anyone, past or present, who would you talk to?
Past or present?
Dead or alive? Anybody, but not Jesus, because that's just too easy of an answer. That's a given.
I don't even know.
Talk to Jesus.
Past or present? maybe my mother-in-law, she passed away.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I might talk to her. I just want to give her the scoop on what's going on.
That's really sweet. She's
good people.
That's a very sweet way to end it. I love that answer. I love all the answers. Tell everybody where they can find you.
I guess you could find me on all my military life socials. I'm on doing those. I have an upcoming podcast called Reinventing Midlife that I'm co-hosting with a couple of really cool people. One is Jen
I'm so excited about that. I can't wait.
Yeah, and Lana Simmons. So we have that coming up, and on most social media spots, I'm under Tara House. I won't give you the list because
it's so extensive.
It's just hilarious. I mean, I don't have my website set up, but I bought it because I was once listening to a mompreneur telling me I needed to.
You have your domain.
So I did. I did cave, thinking I need that in case I'm going to be somebody someday. So I've paid for that stupid thing forever, and I don't even use it.
So there's another Tara House out there listening going, you're the one.
Yeah. I was like, I need to take my own advice and not fall into pressure. But so, yeah, that's all I'm doing.
Well, I think that's great. And I am so glad you joined me. And thank you for taking your time.
You're welcome. It's always fun talking to you.
All right. Well, thanks, Tara, for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay. Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for listening. I hope you have a great week. In the meantime, if you think of a guest you'd like to hear or have a question you want answered, drop me a note at jen@jenmcdonald.net or look for me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Talk to you soon.
Connect with Jen at jenmcdonald.net or on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also purchase her book, You Are Not Alone, Encouragement for the Heart of a Military Spouse at Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other booksellers. Love the show? Don't forget to leave a review on iTunes. Until next time, have a great week.